The alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., just like it did every morning. Marcus Chen slapped the ancient device silent and sat up on his narrow bunk. The metal frame creaked under his weight, a sound he had grown used to over the past 6 months living in Section D of the Concordia Orbital Station. Section D was not where anyone wanted to live. It was the cheapest housing block on the station, where the air recyclers worked at half capacity, and the lights flickered whenever someone 3 doors down used their shower. But it was all Marcus could afford. He rubbed his eyes and checked his credit balance on his wrist display. The numbers glowed a depressing red. 47 credits remaining. His rent was due in 3 days, and that would cost him 200 credits. He was 153 credits short, and payday was still a week away. Another perfect day in paradise, Marcus muttered to himself. He pulled on his worn engineering coveralls. The blue fabric faded to a sad gray after countless washes. The name patch on his chest read Chen, Junior Engineer, in letters that were starting to peel off. He had been working on Concordia for 2 years now, fixing pipes, repairing airlocks, and doing whatever maintenance work the station needed. It was hard work, but honest work. Marcus grabbed his ID card and headed out into the corridor. The morning shift started at 6 a.m., which gave him exactly 20 minutes to get to the cafeteria, grab his breakfast, and report to the engineering bay. 20 minutes to fuel his body for the next 12 hours of crawling through maintenance tunnels and welding broken pipes. The corridors of Section D were narrow and dimly lit. Marcus passed other workers heading to their own shifts. A tired-looking Vryn woman carrying a cleaning kit, 2 Keltar males talking quietly in their clicking language, and a Humyn couple who looked even more exhausted than he felt. Everyone in Section D was struggling. Everyone was just trying to survive another day. The cafeteria was located on the border between Section D and Section C, a reminder that better conditions existed just beyond their reach. Marcus swiped his ID card at the entrance and felt the familiar vibration of his daily meal voucher being activated. 1 meal per day. That was all his work contract provided. 1 meal to last him 24 hours. He had learned to make it work. Breakfast was the most important meal, his mother always said. So he ate in the morning and drank lots of water throughout the day to keep his stomach from complaining too loudly. The cafeteria smelled like synthetic eggs and recycled protein. Not great, but not terrible either. Marcus joined the short line at the food dispenser, his stomach already growling in anticipation. Today's breakfast was listed as protein scramble with vegetable medley, which probably meant yellow paste with green chunks. But it would be warm, and it would be food. And that was enough. Marcus was third in line when he heard the sound. It was soft, almost like a whimper, coming from somewhere near the back of the cafeteria. Most people ignored it. On a station like Concordia, you learned to mind your own business. Other people's problems were not your concern, especially when you had plenty of your own. But Marcus had never been good at ignoring suffering. He stepped out of line and walked toward the sound. Behind the last row of tables, near the waste recycling units, he found her. She was a dragon. Marcus had seen dragons before, of course. Concordia was a multi-species station, home to dozens of different races. Dragons were known throughout the galaxy as one of the oldest and proudest species. They were powerful, intelligent, and wealthy. Dragon nobles owned entire planets. Dragon merchants controlled trade routes that spanned star systems. But this dragon looked nothing like the proud creatures Marcus had seen in news broadcasts. She was curled up on the floor, her body pressed against the cold wall. Her scales, which should have gleamed with inner light, were dull and cracked. Some of them were missing entirely, leaving patches of raw skin exposed. Her wings were folded tight against her back, the membranes torn and ragged. She was thin, dangerously thin. Her ribs visible beneath her damaged scales. She was dying. Marcus could see that clearly. The dragon's eyes opened slowly as Marcus approached. They were golden, like all dragon eyes. But the light in them was fading. She looked at him without hope, without expectation. She had the look of someone who had given up. "Hey," Marcus said softly, kneeling down beside her. "Hey, are you okay? After. Hey, Are you okay? It was a stupid question. She was clearly not okay. The dragon's mouth moved, but only a dry whisper came out. Marcus couldn't understand the words. She was speaking in Draconic, the ancient language of her people. He didn't speak Draconic, most humans didn't, but he understood desperation. That was universal. Marcus looked back at the cafeteria line. His breakfast was waiting, his one meal for the day. His stomach was already cramping with hunger, and he had 12 hours of hard work ahead of him. If he gave up his breakfast now, he wouldn't eat again until tomorrow morning. 24 hours from now. He looked down at the dying dragon woman. He looked back at the cafeteria line. He made his choice. Wait here, Marcus said, though he knew she couldn't understand him. Just wait here. He walked back to the food dispenser and used his meal voucher. The machine hummed and produced a tray with the protein scramble, a cup of synthetic juice, and a small piece of bread. Marcus took the tray and returned to the dragon woman. Here, he said, setting the tray down beside her. You need this more than I do. The dragon stared at the food, then at Marcus, then back at the food. Her eyes widened slightly. Confusion crossed her face, followed by something that might have been disbelief. Marcus realized she probably couldn't feed herself in her current condition. Carefully, trying not to startle her, he picked up the piece of bread and held it near her mouth. It's okay, he said gently. Eat. The dragon's mouth opened slowly. Marcus placed the bread inside, and she chewed weakly. Her eyes closed as if the simple act of eating was overwhelming. Marcus helped her with the rest of the meal, one small bite at a time. The protein scramble, the juice, which he helped her sip carefully. When the tray was empty, the dragon looked at Marcus, really looked at him. Her golden eyes were still dim, but something sparked in their depths. Recognition, gratitude, wonder. She spoke again in Draconic, her voice stronger now. Though Marcus still couldn't understand the words, he understood the meaning. Thank you. It's okay, Marcus said, standing up. His own stomach was screaming at him now, angry at being denied. Just try to get somewhere safe. Okay? Maybe the medical center? He didn't know if she would. He didn't know if she even could. But he had done what he could. Marcus checked his wrist display. He was going to be late for his shift. He hurried toward the exit, not looking back. Behind him, the dragon woman watched him go, her golden eyes following his retreating form. She whispered one more phrase in Draconic, words that Marcus didn't hear and wouldn't have understood anyway. I will remember this, Humyn. I will remember you. Marcus reported to his shift 3 minutes late and got written up by his supervisor. He worked for 12 hours on an empty stomach, his hands shaking by the end of his shift. He drank water from every fountain he passed, trying to trick his body into feeling full. That night, lying in his bunk, Marcus wondered if the dragon woman had survived. He wondered if his sacrifice had mattered at all. He would find out soon enough. 3 weeks later, everything changed. First came the announcement. Marcus was in the middle of repairing a coolant leak in Section B when his supervisor called him into the office. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. Budget cuts, station-wide layoffs, junior engineers were the first to go. Marcus had 2 weeks of work left, and then he was done. Nothing personal, Chen, his supervisor said, not meeting his eyes. You're a good worker, but management says we need to trim costs. Marcus nodded numbly and returned to his bunk. He sat on the edge of his bed and calculated his finances. With his final paycheck, he would have enough credits to survive for maybe 3 more weeks. 4 if he stopped eating entirely, which wasn't really an option. After that, he would be evicted from Section D, and then he would be homeless on an orbital station, where homelessness usually meant death. He needed to find another job, fast. For the next 2 weeks, Marcus applied to every position he could find. Engineering jobs, maintenance work, cleaning services, food preparation, anything that would pay. He received 17 rejections and 0 offers. The station was cutting jobs, not creating them. Everyone was competing for the same limited opportunities. His last day of work came and went. Marcus collected his final paycheck, 340 credits, and watched his future shrink down to a countdown timer. 21 days until eviction, 21 days to figure out how to survive. He sold everything he could, his spare coveralls, his personal data pad, the small collection of physical books his mother had given him before he left Earth. Each item brought him a few more credits, a few more days, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Marcus stopped going to the cafeteria. Food cost credits he didn't have. Instead, he survived on water and the occasional protein bar he could steal from unmanned supply closets. His body grew thinner. His hands developed a constant tremor, but he kept searching for work, kept applying, kept hoping. 18 days until eviction, 15 days, 12 days. On the morning of his 10th day, Marcus woke to a knocking sound. Not the aggressive pounding of station security coming to evict someone, but a polite, measured knock. 3 taps, a pause, then 3 more taps. Marcus dragged himself off his bunk and opened the door. 3 figures stood in the corridor outside his quarters. They looked completely out of place in Section D's dingy hallway, like diamonds accidentally dropped in a garbage pile. The first was a dragon. Male. Older. With silver scales that gleamed even in the poor lighting. He wore an immaculate black suit that probably cost more than Marcus earned in a year. His golden eyes studied Marcus with an expression that was neither friendly nor hostile, simply evaluating. The second was a Vryn woman, her 4 arms holding various data pads and folders. She wore a similar suit in dark blue, and her face bore the ritual tattoos that marked her as a legal professional in Vryn culture. The third was Humyn, a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore glasses that were certainly cosmetic. As vision correction was trivial in the modern age, they made her look serious and intimidating. "Marcus Chen?" the silver dragon asked. His voice was deep and precise, each word carefully pronounced. "Yes?" Marcus replied. Suddenly, very aware of how terrible he looked. He hadn't showered in 2 days to save water credits. His clothes were wrinkled and stained. He probably smelled bad. "My name is Aldrich Thornscale. These are my associates, Counsel Verixala and Miss Patricia Rothstein. We represent the law firm of Thornscale and Associates." The dragon produced a business card from his jacket pocket. The card was made of actual paper, expensive rare paper, with gold lettering. "May we come in?" Marcus's heart sank. Lawyers. Official lawyers from a fancy firm. He was in trouble. He must have violated some regulation, broken some station law he didn't know about. Maybe they were going to sue him for the supplies he had stolen. Okay, Marcus said, stepping back to let them enter. The 3 lawyers entered his tiny quarters and immediately made the space feel even smaller. Aldrich Thornscale had to duck his head to avoid hitting the ceiling. Verixala's wings were folded tight against her back. Only Miss Rothstein seemed comfortable, though she wrinkled her nose slightly at the smell. "Please, sit," Marcus said, gesturing to his only chair. He had nowhere else to offer them. "We'll stand, thank you," Aldrich said. He opened a briefcase and removed a folder. "Mr. Chen, do you recall an incident that occurred approximately 3 weeks ago in the Section D cafeteria?" Marcus's mind raced. The cafeteria? 3 weeks ago? What had he done? Then he remembered. The dragon woman. The breakfast. There was someone who needed help, Marcus said slowly. A dragon. She was starving. So I gave her my meal. Is she okay? Did something happen to her? Aldrich's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his golden eyes. Something happened, yes. Mr. Chen, the individual you assisted, was Lady Seraphina Goldenwing, daughter of House Goldenwing, one of the 12 noble houses of the Draconic Council. Marcus blinked. Nobility, Miss Rothstein clarified, her voice crisp and professional. Very high-ranking nobility. In fact, Lady Seraphina is 4th in line to lead House Goldenwing. which controls mining operations across 17 star systems. Marcus felt dizzy. But she looked like she was dying. How could she be? Betrayal, Verixala said, her voice carrying the musical quality common to Vryn's speech. Lady Seraphina was victim of political conspiracy. Rivals within her own house poisoned her, stripped her of resources, and left her to die in Section D. They believed she would perish before anyone discovered her identity. They did not account for human compassion, Aldrich added. Marcus sat down on his bunk, his legs suddenly weak. Is she alive? Did she survive? Yes, Aldrich said. Lady Seraphina recovered. Your intervention provided her with enough strength to reach medical assistance. She exposed the conspiracy, and those responsible have been dealt with according to draconic law. She has been fully restored to her position within House Goldenwing. Relief flooded through Marcus. That's good. I'm glad she's okay. However, Aldrich continued, your assistance has created a significant legal situation. Are you familiar with draconic law, Mr. Chen? Marcus shook his head. Aldrich opened the folder and removed a document. The paper was covered in dense text in both draconic script and standard galactic. In draconic culture, there exists an ancient law called the debt of sustenance. When a dragon is dying of starvation, and another being provides them with food at personal cost, a sacred debt is created. This debt is considered one of the most serious obligations in our society. I don't understand, Marcus said. I just gave her breakfast. It was just food. It was not just food, Verixala said gently. By providing sustenance to Lady Seraphina, when you yourself were starving, you created the highest form of this debt. You had nothing, yet gave everything. In draconic law, this binds her entire house to you. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. Wait, I don't want anyone to be bound to me. I didn't do it for any reward. She needed help. We understand, Miss, Rothstein said. However, draconic law is not optional. The debt exists whether you intended to create it or not. Lady Seraphina has formally invoked the debt of sustenance before the Draconic Council. House Goldenwing is now honor-bound to repay you. But I don't need to be repaid, Marcus protested. I'm fine. Aldrich raised one scaled eyebrow and looked pointedly around Marcus's bare quarters, at the empty food containers in the corner, at the notice of eviction that was stuck to the wall, at Marcus himself, thin and exhausted and clearly not fine at all. Mr. Chen, Aldrich said quietly, lying to a dragon about your well-being is considered deeply insulting. Please do not insult us. Marcus flushed. Okay. Fine. I'm not fine. I'm broke, unemployed, and about to be homeless. But that's my problem, not yours. I don't want charity. This is not charity, Aldrich said firmly. This is law. This is honor. This is debt repayment. Lady Seraphina has submitted a formal proposal to the Draconic Council regarding how to satisfy the debt of sustenance. The Council has approved her proposal unanimously. We are here to inform you of the terms. Marcus felt like he was trapped in a strange dream. What terms? Verixala stepped forward and handed Marcus a datapad. These are the terms of debt repayment, as proposed by Lady Seraphina and approved by House Goldenwing. Please review them. Marcus took the pad with shaking hands. He looked at the screen, but the legal language was dense and confusing. Words like adoption, estate, advisory position, and hereditary rights swam before his eyes. I don't understand any of this, Marcus admitted. Miss, Rothstein smiled for the first time since entering. It was a small smile, but genuine. Let me translate into simple terms, Mr. Chen. As of today, you are being adopted as an honorary member of House Goldenwing. You will receive an estate, educational funding, a seat on the House Advisory Council, and a newly created position as human liaison for all draconic commercial ventures. Effectively, you are becoming dragon nobility. Marcus stared at her, then at Aldrich. then at Varixala, then back at the datapad. That's insane, he whispered. That is draconic law, Aldrich replied. Do you accept these terms? Marcus's mind was spinning. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. Junior engineers from Section D didn't become nobility. This had to be some kind of mistake, or a cruel joke, or a fever dream brought on by starvation. What if I refuse? Marcus asked. Then, Lady Serafina and her entire house will be bound by unfulfilled debt, Aldrich said. They will be unable to conduct business, make contracts, or interact with galactic society until the debt is satisfied. Effectively, you would destroy one of the most powerful houses in the galaxy. That's not fair, Marcus protested. I can't. Life is rarely fair, Mr. Chen, Aldrich interrupted. But law is law. You have 24 hours to decide. We will return tomorrow at this time for your answer. The three lawyers turned to leave. At the door, Aldrich paused and looked back at Marcus. For what it's worth, the Silver Dragon said quietly. Lady Serafina believes you deserve this. She says you demonstrated more honor in one moment than most beings show in a lifetime. Perhaps you should believe her. Then they were gone, leaving Marcus alone with a datapad that promised to change his entire life. He had 10 days until eviction. He had 24 hours to decide his future. Marcus lay back on his bunk and stared at the ceiling, wondering if he had finally lost his mind. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay on his bunk, staring at the datapad, reading through the terms of the debt repayment over and over again. Each time he read it, the words seemed more unbelievable. An estate. Not an apartment or a small house, but an actual estate with multiple rooms and personal staff. Educational funding that would allow him to study anything he wanted at any university in the galaxy. A position on the House Golden Wing Advisory Council, with full voting rights on business decisions that affected billions of people. And the role of human liaison, which came with a salary that made his engineering wages look like pocket change. By morning, Marcus had made his decision. Not because he wanted wealth or power, but because refusing would hurt people who had done nothing wrong. Lady Serafina and her house didn't deserve to be destroyed because Marcus was too proud to accept help. When Aldrich Thornscale and his associates returned exactly 24 hours later, Marcus was waiting at his door. I accept, Marcus said simply. Aldrich nodded, as if he had expected this answer all along. Very well. Please gather your belongings. We leave immediately. Leave? Leave where? To your new residence, of course, Miss Rothstein said. You cannot serve as a member of House Golden Wing while living in Section D quarters. It would be inappropriate. Marcus looked around his tiny room. His belongings fit in a single bag. A few changes of clothes, some personal items, and the empty protein bar wrappers he had been too tired to throw away. Everything else had been sold. I'm ready, Marcus said. The journey from Section D to the upper levels of Concordia Station was like traveling to a different world. Marcus had never been above Section C before. He couldn't afford to shop in the upper-level stores, and he certainly couldn't afford to live there. The elevator ride took 5 minutes. With each passing second, the station became cleaner, brighter, more beautiful. The corridors widened. The air smelled fresh instead of recycled. Real plants grew in decorative pots along the walls. They arrived at level A, the highest residential level on the station. Marcus had seen pictures of level A on advertisements. But pictures didn't capture the reality. The ceilings were high enough for dragons to spread their wings. Natural sunlight, actual sunlight, piped in through solar collectors, illuminated everything with warm, golden light. The floor was made of polished stone, instead of metal grating. This way, Aldrich said, leading Marcus down a corridor lined with ornate doors. Each door bore a family crest or personal symbol. They stopped at a door marked with a symbol Marcus didn't recognize. A golden wing wrapped around a star. Your residence, Aldrich said, pressing his hand to a scanner beside the door. The door opened, and Marcus stepped into a space that took his breath away. The main room was larger than the entire Section D living block. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the stars beyond the station, a view Marcus had only ever seen on screens. Comfortable furniture was arranged in conversation areas. Real wooden shelves lined one wall, empty and waiting to be filled. A kitchen with actual cooking equipment, not just a food dispenser, occupied one corner. There are 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a study, and a private gym, Miss Rothstein explained, walking through the space as if it was perfectly normal. The study is already equipped with communication equipment for your work as human liaison. Staff quarters are available if you wish to hire assistants, but that's optional. Marcus couldn't speak. He walked to the windows and pressed his hand against the glass, staring out at the infinite darkness dotted with distant suns. From Section D, he had only ever seen the interior walls of the station. This view made the universe feel both impossibly large and somehow closer than before. "Mr. Chen," Aldrich said, "Lady Serafina has requested a meeting with you this afternoon, if you're willing. She wishes to thank you personally." Marcus turned from the window. Yes, of course. I'd like to meet her too." "Excellent. We'll return in 2 hours to escort you to House Goldenwing's private section. Please, take this time to settle in." The lawyers left, and Marcus was alone in his new home. He walked through each room slowly, touching things carefully, as if they might disappear if he wasn't gentle. The bed in the master bedroom was so soft he sank into it when he sat down. The bathroom had a shower with actual water pressure, not the weak trickle of Section D. The kitchen refrigerator was stocked with fresh food. Real food. Not synthetic protein. Marcus realized he was crying. He wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed, even though no one was there to see. 2 hours later, Marcus had showered, changed into the new clothes he found waiting in the bedroom closet, and eaten his first real meal in weeks. When Aldrich returned, Marcus almost looked like he belonged in Level A. Almost. They took a private transport, another luxury Marcus had never experienced, to the House Goldenwing section of the station. This area was restricted to house members and their guests. Security was tight but professional. When the guards saw Aldrich, they bowed respectfully and waved them through. The House Goldenwing chamber was magnificent. The entire space was designed to accommodate dragons in their full glory. The ceiling soared 30 feet high. Columns carved with draconic script supported the roof. A massive table dominated the center of the room, surrounded by chairs sized for both dragons and smaller species, and at the head of the table sat Lady Serafina Goldenwing. Marcus barely recognized her. The dying creature he had found in the cafeteria had been transformed completely. Serafina's scales gleamed like molten gold, each one perfect and reflecting light like a precious gem. Her wings were folded elegantly against her back, the membranes healed and strong. Her eyes held the fierce intelligence and pride that marked all dragon nobility. She was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "Marcus Chen," Serafina said, rising from her seat. Her voice was rich and musical, nothing like the weak whisper he remembered. "Please, come forward." Marcus walked toward her, acutely aware that every dragon in the chamber was watching him. There were at least a dozen of them, all wearing the formal robes of house nobility. Some looked curious. Some looked skeptical. One elderly dragon in the corner looked openly hostile. Marcus stopped a respectful distance from Serafina and bowed, unsure of the proper protocol. "Lady Serafina, I'm glad to see you recovered." Serafina smiled, an expression that showed rows of sharp teeth but somehow still managed to seem warm. "Recovered? Yes, thanks to you." She gestured to the chair beside her own. "Please, sit. We have much to discuss." Marcus sat, feeling completely out of place among these powerful beings. Serafina settled back into her own seat and studied him with those golden eyes. "I want to explain something to you," Serafina said, "about why you're here and why this debt repayment matters so much." Marcus nodded, listening. 3 weeks ago, I was dying," Serafina continued. "Not just physically, though that was true enough. I was dying in spirit. I had been betrayed by those I trusted, stripped of everything, left to starve in the darkest corner of this station. I believed that I had been wrong about the universe, wrong about honor, wrong about the value of kindness. She paused, looking out at the stars beyond the chamber windows. And then a human appeared, a stranger who had nothing, a worker who was starving himself, and he gave me his only meal without hesitation, without asking for anything in return, without even knowing who I was. Serafina turned back to Marcus. Do you understand what that meant to me? I couldn't let you die, Marcus said quietly. Exactly, Serafina said. You couldn't let me die. Not because I was nobility. You didn't know that. Not because you expected a reward. You asked for nothing. You helped me because I was a living being in need. And that was enough. That simple act reminded me why my house exists. Why we accumulated power and wealth in the first place. 1. An elderly dragon at the far end of the table spoke up, his voice gravelly with age. Sister, I mean no disrespect to our guest, but must we truly include a human in our house? He has no understanding of our customs, our history, our ways of conducting business. Serafina's eyes flashed dangerously. Elder Mordrath, did you not hear what I just said? This human displayed more honor than half this council combined. He had nothing and gave everything. That is the foundation of true nobility. Not bloodlines, not ancient traditions, but character. But he lacks experience. Another dragon protested. This one younger with emerald green scales. How can he advise us on matters of galactic commerce? How can he serve as our liaison to humans when he has no diplomatic training? Marcus felt his face flush. They were right, of course. He was just an engineer. A failed engineer at that. He had no business being here. May I speak? Marcus asked quietly. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him. You're right, Marcus said, addressing the skeptical dragons. I don't know your customs. I have no diplomatic training. I've never advised anyone on anything important. I'm not qualified for this position by any normal measure. Several dragons nodded, as if pleased that Marcus recognized his own limitations. But, Marcus continued, I can learn. I can study your customs and your history. I can train in diplomacy and commerce. What I already have, though, is something that can't be taught. He met Serafina's gaze. I see people, not positions. I saw someone suffering, and I helped. That's not special. That's just being human. And maybe that's exactly what you need. Serafina's smile widened. You see? This is why he's here. Not because he has all the answers, but because he asks the right questions and makes the right choices. She stood, spreading her wings slightly in a gesture Marcus would later learn indicated formal announcement. The debt of sustenance has been invoked and accepted. Marcus Chen is now an honorary member of House Goldenwing, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Anyone who challenges this challenges me personally. The hostile murmurs died immediately. No one challenged Serafina. Now, Serafina said, sitting back down and adopting a more relaxed posture. Marcus, let's discuss your role as human liaison. I have your first assignment already prepared. Assignment? Marcus asked. Yes, there's a trade dispute between House Goldenwing and a human colony called New Terra. The situation has been escalating for months. Both sides are angry. Both sides feel disrespected. If we cannot resolve this soon, it could damage the alliance between our species. Serafina slid a datapad across the table. I'm putting you in charge of finding a solution. Marcus stared at the pad. You want me to solve a trade dispute? Between dragons and humans? By myself? You'll have support, of course, Serafina assured him. But yes, you'll lead the negotiation. You understand both species. You can bridge the gap. Marcus picked up the pad with shaking hands. The dispute details filled dozens of pages. Contract terms, shipping manifests, accusations of broken promises, demands for compensation. It was complicated and messy and potentially explosive. I don't know if I can do this, Marcus admitted. Serafina placed one clawed hand gently on his shoulder. 3 weeks ago, you gave a dying dragon your last meal. If you can do that, you can do anything. I believe in you. Marcus Chen, now you must believe in yourself. Marcus looked around the table at the assembled dragons. Some still looked skeptical, but others were watching him with something like curiosity. Wondering what this human would do, wondering if Serafina's faith was justified. Marcus took a deep breath and opened the datapad. Okay, he said. Tell me everything about this dispute. Argurs. Serafina's smile was brilliant. Excellent. Let's begin. House Goldenwing had signed a contract with New Terra Colony to provide rare minerals needed for their water purification systems. The minerals were expensive but essential. Without them, New Terra's water would become toxic within months. House Goldenwing had delivered the first shipment on time, but the second shipment was delayed by 6 weeks. New Terra's governor was furious. The delay had forced the colony to ration water. Children had gotten sick from drinking partially contaminated water. The governor accused House Goldenwing of breaking their promise and demanded compensation, either a full refund or free minerals for the next 5 years. House Goldenwing was equally angry. The delay hadn't been intentional. A solar storm had damaged their mining equipment, and repairs had taken longer than expected. They had sent messages to New Terra explaining the situation, but the colony governor had ignored every communication. From the dragon's perspective, New Terra was being unreasonable and disrespectful. Both sides had stopped talking to each other entirely. Both sides were preparing legal action. The situation was about to explode into a full economic conflict that could damage human-dragon relations across multiple systems, and Marcus was supposed to fix it. This is impossible, Marcus muttered, reading through yet another angry message from New Terra's governor. The man's words dripped with contempt for dragons, calling them arrogant lizards who think they own the galaxy. Serafina visited Marcus in his study on the evening of the 3rd day. She found him surrounded by datapads, rubbing his tired eyes. How's the research going? She asked, settling into a chair that creaked under her weight. Terrible, Marcus admitted. Both sides hate each other. Neither side wants to compromise. The dragons think humans are emotional and irrational. The humans think dragons are cold and uncaring. How am I supposed to bridge that gap? Serafina was quiet for a moment. Tell me, Marcus. When you found me in the cafeteria, what did you see? Marcus looked up, confused by the question. I saw someone who needed help. Exactly. You didn't see a dragon or a noble or a potential business contact. You saw a person suffering. Serafina leaned forward. That's your gift, Marcus. You see past the surface. These two groups don't hate each other. They're just scared and hurt and not communicating properly. Find the real problem beneath all the anger. After Serafina left, Marcus reviewed the communications again, but this time, he read between the lines. He looked past the angry words to the emotions underneath. New Terra's governor wasn't really angry about the delay. He was terrified. His colony was dying, and he felt helpless. He had sent desperate messages to House Goldenwing, explaining how bad things were, begging for any help they could provide. Those messages had gone unanswered. But wait. The dragons claimed they had sent explanations about the delay, so why hadn't the governor received them? Marcus dug deeper into the communication logs. And there, buried in the technical data, he found the answer. The messages had been sent in formal draconic protocol, a specific frequency and format that dragon houses used for official business. But New Terra's communication systems were older human technology. The colony's receivers literally couldn't detect the draconic signals. Every message the dragons sent had vanished into space, never reaching New Terra. Meanwhile, the governor's desperate pleas had been sent in standard human format. Informal, emotional, marked as urgent personal communication rather than official business correspondence. The dragon communication officers had filtered these messages as spam, never showing them to anyone important. Neither side had ignored the other. They had been shouting into a void, each thinking the other side didn't care. Marcus sat back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face. This wasn't about contracts or compensation. This was about two groups who didn't understand how to talk to each other, and Marcus knew exactly how to fix it. The next morning, Marcus sent identical messages to both House Goldenwing and New Terra's governor. The message was simple: meeting requested, neutral location, come hungry. Serafina approved Marcus's plan immediately, though Elder Mordrath and several other council members were skeptical. A dinner party? Mordrath said, his voice dripping with disbelief. You want to solve a trade dispute with a dinner party? Not a party, Marcus corrected. A potluck. Each side brings food from their culture to share. It's a human tradition. It builds community. This is ridiculous, another dragon muttered. We should be negotiating terms, not sharing recipes. But Serafina silenced them with a look. Marcus has authorization to proceed. We'll see if his human approach works. New Terra's governor, a tired-looking man named Richard Hayes, was equally confused by the invitation, but he was desperate enough to try anything. He agreed to come to Concordia Station with 3 representatives from the colony. Marcus arranged for the meeting to take place in a neutral conference room, not in House Goldenwing territory, and not in the human sections of the station. He had the furniture removed and replaced with a simple long table and comfortable chairs. No formality, no power dynamics, just people sitting together. The day of the meeting arrived. The dragons came first. Serafina, Elder Mordrath, and 2 other council members. They brought food prepared by House Goldenwing's chefs. Delicate pastries filled with spiced meat, fruit glazed with honey imported from distant worlds, and a sparkling drink that tasted like starlight. Governor Hayes arrived 30 minutes later with his delegation. They looked exhausted and worried. But they had brought food too. A casserole made from New Terra's native vegetables, fresh bread baked that morning, and a dessert made from preserved earth strawberries, probably one of the last luxuries the colony had. The 2 groups eyed each other warily across the table. No one sat down. Marcus stood at the head of the table, his heart pounding. This had to work. Thank you all for coming. Before we discuss business, I want to share a story. Aris. He told them about finding Serafina in the cafeteria, about giving away his breakfast, about being hungry and broke but helping anyway. The dragons knew the story already, but the humans listened with wide eyes. The point is, Marcus said, I didn't see a dragon that day. I saw someone who needed food. That's what I'm asking you to do now. Don't see dragons or humans across this table. See people. People who are tired and scared, and trying to do right by those who depend on them. Governor Hayes shifted uncomfortably. With all respect, Mr. Chen, this is a nice sentiment. But it doesn't solve our problem. My colony is dying. I know, Marcus said gently. And I know you sent messages to House Goldenwing, explaining that. Desperate messages, begging for help. Hayes blinked in surprise. They ignored everyone. No, Marcus said. They never received them. Your communication system and theirs aren't compatible. Your messages were filtered as spam. Their explanations about the mining delay were sent in a format your receivers couldn't detect. You weren't ignoring each other. You literally couldn't hear each other. The room went silent. Serafina leaned forward. Governor Hayes, are you saying you sent messages about the water situation? About sick children? Dozens of them, Hayes said, his voice breaking slightly. I thought you didn't care. I thought the great House Goldenwing couldn't be bothered with a small human colony's problems. Mordrath's scales rippled with distress, a dragon expression of shame. We sent 6 messages explaining the solar storm damage. We offered temporary alternatives and expedited shipping for the replacement minerals. We thought you were refusing to acknowledge our communications out of spite. I never got any of that, Hayes whispered. Marcus let the realization sink in. Then he said, so the question isn't who's at fault. The question is, how do we fix this and make sure it never happens again? Serafina was the first to move. She stood, picked up one of the plates of dragon food, and walked around the table to Governor Hayes. Please, she said, offering him the plate. Eat. You look hungry. And let's talk about solutions. Hayes stared at her for a long moment. Then he took the plate with shaking hands. Thank you. All? That simple exchange broke the tension. Suddenly everyone was sitting down, passing food around, eating together. The dragons tried human casserole and found it delicious. The humans tasted dragon pastries and were amazed by the flavors, and as they ate, they talked, not about blame or compensation or legal action. They talked about their real problems and their real needs. Hayes explained that New Terra needed the minerals desperately, but the colony was also broke from medical expenses treating the sick children. The dragons explained that the solar storm had damaged equipment worth millions of credits, and the repair costs had nearly bankrupted the mining operation. Marcus listened to everything, taking notes. Then he said, "What if we changed the approach entirely? Instead of House Goldenwing selling minerals to New Terra, what if it was a partnership?" "Partnership?" Serafina asked. Marcus nodded, his mind racing. New Terra has something House Goldenwing needs: human agricultural expertise. Your mining colonies struggle to grow food efficiently. New Terra specializes in agriculture. What if New Terra sends agricultural advisors to help improve your colony farms? And in exchange, House Goldenwing provides the minerals New Terra needs at cost. No profit, just covering expenses. Hayes sat up straighter. Our agricultural science program is one of the best in the sector. We could definitely help with that, and we desperately need better food production on our mining worlds, Mordrath admitted. Our people complain constantly about the limited menu. Both sides benefit, Marcus continued. New Terra gets the minerals they need to survive. House Goldenwing gets expertise that will improve life for thousands of their people. And you build a real relationship instead of just a business transaction. Serafina and Hayes looked at each other across the table. Slowly, simultaneously, they smiled. I think, Hayes said carefully, that could work. I agree, Serafina said. Shall we draft the terms? They talked for 3 more hours, working out details, addressing concerns, building something new. By the end of the evening, they had the framework for an agreement that satisfied everyone. As the meeting ended and everyone prepared to leave, Governor Hayes approached Marcus. Mr. Chen, Hayes said, extending his hand. Thank you. You saved my colony today. Marcus shook his hand. You saved it yourself by being willing to try something different. After everyone left, Serafina remained behind with Marcus. She looked at him with undisguised pride. You did something remarkable today, she said. You turned enemies into partners. You created something better than either side imagined. Marcus felt exhausted but happy. I just helped them talk to each other. Exactly, Serafina said. And word of this will spread, Marcus. Other species will hear about the human who solved an impossible problem by bringing people together over food. They'll want to learn from you. Marcus hadn't thought about that. You think so? I know so, Serafina replied. You've proven something important today. You've proven that humanity's greatest strength isn't technology or military power. It's your ability to see the person behind the species and build bridges where others see only walls. She placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. Welcome to your new life, Marcus Chen. I think you're going to change the galaxy. The New Terra Agreement became a model that other colonies and houses began to copy. Within weeks of the successful negotiation, Marcus received requests from 3 other dragon houses, 2 human colonies, and even a Vryn trade collective. Everyone wanted to know how he had turned a crisis into a partnership. Marcus didn't have a secret formula. He just listened to people, found their real needs beneath their anger, and helped them see each other as individuals instead of enemies. But apparently, that was revolutionary enough. Serafina suggested creating something more permanent. You shouldn't be solving disputes one at a time, she told Marcus over breakfast one morning in his estate. You should be teaching others how to do what you do. And so the Galactic Liaison Institute was born. The institute occupied an entire floor of Concordia Station, funded entirely by House Goldenwing. Marcus personally designed the curriculum, working with experts from dozens of species. The program taught cultural communication, empathetic negotiation, and what Marcus called seeing the person first. It was a 6-month intensive course, and applications flooded in from across the galaxy. The first graduating class consisted of 47 students from 19 different species. They included humans, dragons, Vryn, Keltar, Zentari, and even species Marcus had never encountered before. Each graduate received certification as a galactic liaison, someone trained to bridge cultural divides and turn conflicts into collaborations. Marcus stood before the graduating class on their final day, looking at their eager faces. 6 months ago, many of these students had been strangers to each other, suspicious of other species, uncertain about working together. Now they were friends, colleagues, ready to change their worlds. "You're not learning magic here," Marcus told them. "You're learning something much more powerful. You're learning to care about people who are different from you. That's all it takes. Care enough to listen. Care enough to try. Care enough to see them as people, not as obstacles." The graduates dispersed across the galaxy, taking their training with them. Reports began flowing back to Marcus within weeks. A Humyn-Vryn trade dispute resolved in 3 days, a territorial disagreement between 2 Keltar tribes solved without violence, a dragon house and a human corporation forming an unexpected partnership to build schools on undeveloped worlds. Every success story mentioned the same thing. Someone had stopped to listen. Someone had cared enough to find a better solution than conflict. The Galactic Council took notice. Representatives from dozens of governments contacted Marcus, asking him to present his methods. Major news networks interviewed him. Universities offered him honorary doctorates. Marcus Chen, the failed junior engineer from Section D, had become one of the most influential people in the galaxy. But the success didn't change him. Marcus still lived in his estate on Concordia Station. Still ate breakfast at the same small table by the windows. Still remembered what it felt like to be hungry and desperate. He never forgot where he came from. One morning, Marcus was reviewing applications for the Institute's next class when his door chimed. He opened it to find an unexpected visitor. The man standing in his doorway was thin and worn, dressed in cheap coveralls that had seen better days. His face was haggard, his eyes tired. It took Marcus a moment to recognize him. "Krieg?" Marcus said, surprised. "Krieg Davros?" Krieg had been Marcus's co-worker in the engineering department. The same co-worker who had mocked Marcus for helping the dragon woman, calling it a waste of time. The same man who had laughed when Marcus was laid off, saying it was survival of the fittest. Now Krieg looked like he was barely surviving at all. "Marcus," Krieg said, his voice rough. I heard you were doing well, living up here now." He looked around the corridor nervously, clearly uncomfortable in the wealthy section of the station. "Come in," Marcus said immediately, stepping aside. Krieg hesitated. "I don't want to bother you. I need work. Any work. I've been unemployed for 4 months. I'm 3 weeks from eviction. I thought maybe you knew someone who was hiring." Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest. He remembered exactly how that felt. The desperation. The fear. The countdown to homelessness. "When did you last eat?" Marcus asked. Krieg flushed with embarrassment. "Yesterday morning. I'm fine, really. I just need a job lead, that's all." Marcus walked to his kitchen and began pulling out food. Fresh bread. Real cheese. Fruit that cost more than Krieg probably made in a week when he was employed. He made a sandwich, poured a glass of juice, and brought it to Krieg. "Eat first," Marcus said, placing the plate in Krieg's hands. "Then we'll talk about work." Krieg stared at the food, his eyes getting wet. "I was such an asshole to you. When you helped that dragon, I laughed at you. When you got laid off, I didn't even try to help. Why are you being nice to me?" Marcus sat down across from him. "Because you're hungry. Because you need help. That's all the reason I need." Krieg ate slowly, tears running down his face. When he finished, Marcus made him another sandwich. Then they talked. Marcus learned that Krieg had been laid off in the same round of budget cuts that hit the entire engineering department. Unlike Marcus, Krieg had no savings, no backup plan, and no one to turn to. He had spent months applying for jobs with no success. He had sold everything he owned. He was running out of time and hope. "I can offer you a position at the Institute," Marcus said. "We need someone with engineering experience to maintain our facilities and equipment. It's not glamorous work, but it pays well and includes housing." Krieg's mouth fell open. You'd hire me? After how I treated you?" "Everyone deserves a chance, Krieg. Everyone deserves help when they need it." Marcus smiled. "Besides, you'll be perfect for the job. And who knows, maybe working at the Institute will teach you something about seeing people instead of just seeing competition." Krieg started work the following week. Marcus noticed how he slowly changed over the following months. Krieg began attending Institute lectures during his breaks. He started talking to students from different species. He stopped seeing the world as a competition for survival and started seeing it as a community where everyone could help each other. 3 months later, Krieg enrolled as a student in the Institute program himself. "I want to be better," he told Marcus. "I want to do what you do, help people bridge gaps." Marcus watched Krieg graduate 6 months later, transformed from a cynical engineer into someone who genuinely cared about making the galaxy a better place. It was one of Marcus's proudest moments. The ripple effect continued to spread. Stories reached Marcus from across the galaxy about the Institute's impact. A Zentari liaison had prevented a war between 2 neighboring systems by helping them understand each other's cultural signals. A Humyn graduate had facilitated trade between species that had been enemies for generations. A dragon student had brought food aid to a struggling colony, inspired by Marcus's original act of kindness. One evening, Serafina visited Marcus at his estate. She found him at his favorite spot by the windows, watching the stars. "You look thoughtful," Serafina said, settling into the reinforced chair beside him. "I was just thinking," Marcus said. 6 months ago, I was nobody, a failed engineer about to be homeless. Now people across the galaxy are learning from my example. It feels unreal." "It's very real," Serafina assured him. "You've created something remarkable, Marcus. The Institute has trained hundreds of liaisons. Those liaisons have helped thousands of people. Those people have helped thousands more. Your one act of kindness has multiplied into millions of acts of kindness." Marcus shook his head in wonder. "I just gave you my breakfast. That's all I did." "That's everything you did," Serafina corrected. "You saw someone suffering, and you chose to help, even though it cost you." That choice echoed across the galaxy because you reminded everyone of something they had forgotten. That we're all connected. That helping others helps everyone. She stood and walked to the window, her golden scales reflecting the starlight. "The Galactic Council wants to formally recognize your work. They're creating a new position, Ambassador of Compassionate Diplomacy. They want you to fill it." Marcus looked up in surprise. "Ambassador? You'd travel to different worlds, teaching your methods, solving conflicts, spreading this philosophy of seeing people first." Serafina smiled. "You'd change the galaxy, Marcus, more than you already have." Marcus thought about it. About all the places he could go, all the people he could help, all the conflicts he could turn into partnerships. Then he thought about something else. "Can I make a condition?" Marcus asked. "Of course." The Institute continues. It grows. We open branches on other stations, other worlds. We train thousands more liaisons. Marcus stood and faced Serafina. "Because I'm just one person. But if we can teach others to care, to listen, to help, then the impact never stops. It keeps growing." Serafina's smile was brilliant. "I'll make sure of it. House Goldenwing will fund expansion to 10 new locations within the year." They stood together at the window, looking out at the infinite stars. Somewhere out there, a Zentari was sharing food with a stranger. A human was listening to a dragon's problems. A Vryn was helping someone from a species they'd never met before, all because one human had given away his breakfast. Marcus thought back to that morning in the cafeteria, when he had been so hungry and so broke but had chosen to help anyway. He had thought it was just a small moment, a simple choice that wouldn't matter to anyone but that one dragon woman. He had been wrong. That moment had mattered to everyone. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly to Serafina. "For giving me this chance. For believing in me." Serafina placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. "No, Marcus, thank you. You saved my life. But more than that, you reminded all of us, what really matters. Not wealth or power or status. Just kindness. Just caring about each other." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "The debt of sustenance has been repaid many times over. But if I'm being honest, I don't think it will ever truly be settled. Because what you gave me that day wasn't just food. It was hope. And that's a debt that can never be fully repaid, only passed forward." After Serafina left, Marcus sat back down and pulled up his message system. Hundreds of messages waited. Requests for help. Applications to the Institute. Reports from liaisons in the field. Each one represented someone trying to make things better, trying to help, trying to care. Marcus smiled and began answering messages, helping where he could, encouraging those who needed it, celebrating those who succeeded. Outside his window, the galaxy turned. In distant systems, on worlds he'd never visited, people were choosing kindness over indifference, choosing understanding over conflict, choosing to see the person instead of the species. One breakfast had started it all. One simple choice made by one hungry human who couldn't look away from suffering. And the galaxy was better for it. Marcus Chen, former junior engineer from Section D, had learned the most important lesson anyone could learn, that the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. You just have to care enough to try. The stars shone outside his window, bright and endless, full of infinite possibility. And somewhere out there, someone else was making a choice to be kind. The ripple continued. The end, Claude.